Welcome. So let's just pick up on the domestication. I've got a question I want to throw out there. Last week I threw out the question about paradigm shifting, that we all want to shift our paradigms from when we were children to now. And even some of the stuff that we do now as adults, as we change our careers, as we end our careers, as we move into other parts of our lives, move into other parts of the world. Sometimes people say we can't do it. So the question I want to pose out there tonight is, does anybody have the thought from their domestication, our childhood, that said that you weren't worthy? That anything that was planned, it might not have been said that you weren't worthy, or you can't do it, or you're just like so and so, or did anybody ever get any domestication about you weren't worthy? I know I did. I didn't know what it was at the time. I wouldn't have said those words in my own vocabulary, because I thought that might have been discipline. I thought it might have been uh, con- constructive feedback, all those things. And it really was more belittling and diminishing, and you can't. So I think that's a part of this domestication part, because I'm going to go to page, I think, I don't remember where we were, but the mom and dad stuff come up. So I'm going to go to page 7. If anybody's got the book, we are told you are a good boy or you are a good girl when you do what mom and dad wants us to do. When we don't, we are a bad girl or a bad boy. Did we get those? I got that. You're a bad girl. And I didn't feel like a bad girl at the time. And then you're just like, well, if I'm a bad girl, let me show you what a bad girl looks like.
That's right.
Because that's not a bad girl to me, but I can show you what a bad girl looks like. So, did anybody get that? That you were a bad, even something as simple as a bad girl, right? Or a bad boy? Ron, were you ever told you were a bad boy?
Actually, no, I was spoiled. So I was always the good boy. I mean, all my mom's friends constantly said, oh, he's such a good boy. He's such a good boy. Uh, my father had huge self-esteem issues. And so nothing I did was ever good enough. Um, I could run for 60 yards and a touchdown in our Pee Wee football game. And it was, yeah, that was good, but if you would have done this and this and this, you could have done more. Everything was always, you could have been better. You could have been better. You could have. Um, and I thought, like you, that it was part of him teaching me. It wasn't until later on that I realized it was because even as a child, he didn't want me to compete. He
Mm-hmm.
needed to be that much better. But no, I was always the good boy till I was
Well, you were a good boy to your mom, but not so good to your dad, right? Is
no.
that what I mean?
I,
Who was the person that said you
I,
weren't good enough, or you could have did better? Was
yeah,
that?
but I was still a good boy. I behaved
Oh, okay.
like a good boy, but that was only because I never got caught, and I was polite.
Buddy.
I learned at a very young age that if you were polite, you get away with about 5 times as much stuff as anybody else.
It's funny you say that. My line name when I pledged Delta in college was Miss Polite, because I must have learned that young too. If you just be nice, they'll let you
Yeah.
get away with
Yes,
it.
ma'am, yes, sir. You can get away with it. Yeah.
Funny. Yeah. Anybody else recordings in your head from the past? Something that was said that you
Whenever
want
I
to share?
complained about anything, the question was, what did you do wrong?
Mm.
So there was no real validation. And and the opposite of anything that I was, if it wasn't liked what I was saying or doing, the opposite was to be a lady, which really sounded very boring.
It's like that. Um, Anyone
Yeah.
else before we keep going? I like that.
Yeah, I just feel that my dreams and my wants for my own life, um, I had people kind of substituting what their dreams were and saying they wanted me to pursue that. Like my dad wanted me to be a medical doctor instead of a piled higher and deeper.
Mm,
And he was probably thinking financially, partly just, which probably would have turned out better in some ways, but, I'm still in the struggle and finding my path. And I think it's just when you're a bohemian child or, more spiritually seeking or all the things, it's, parents are kind of like, okay, you're not fitting into this box nicely.
I know that, and that's so subtle and gentle and happy. That's when you don't even realize that success to everyone is different. Just because you don't have a pile of money or you got this big spread, and that doesn't mean you're not successful or happy. So it's the generational gap when it comes to what looks successful to the parent versus the child from generation to generation. I can look at my own kids. It's like, really? But I have to remember I was that kid. Just like, oh yeah, that's me now. They're
Yeah.
me now. So, it's like, oh, that's boring to you.
Yeah.
Glenda.
My experience was that when my parents told me I was a bad girl for some reason, I believed it. I thought they must be right because who am I but just a kid? So I would always look back at me and try to figure out why I was a bad girl, what I had done wrong. And it took me a long time to figure out that it wasn't necessarily about me. You know, and
Yeah.
that a lot of unlearning to get to that place.
It's not personal.
Probably still, Glenda. I mean, I'll have a flashback in my head about not even my parents themselves, but something in my childhood. I'm like, oh, that's what they were trying to do with me. Oh, that's what they were trying to do with me. I didn't know what they were trying to do with me. They were trying to mold me into this sub creature, rather than the person that I was blossoming to be. And so I totally get what you're saying. Anyone else about it's almost like that self-fulfilling prophecy that I use in the habits where they keep telling you you're a banker or you're a lawyer and you can become that, and then the opposite of that, well, you're no good. You're just like your dad and he was a no good. So you're not any good and you not turn out no good. Yeah.
I still feel that when I'm like, say, for instance, if I'm driving someplace and somebody pulls in front of me or does something wrong, I always stop and think, oops, how did I cause that? What did I?
Mm.
So I know it's still there in the background running.
I'll add one quick thing. For me, it was more like I would disappoint my parents. So it was almost like I really feel like they used guilt to raise me. So they were either disappointed or happy. It wasn't so much whether I was bad or good, but did I make them happy or did I not make them happy? That's just another take on the same thing, I guess.
I agree. Same thing. Different. Yeah. Different words.
Different vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
When
crazy.
we
I don't think that parents, though, mean to do that, or if they knew how that really felt. I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't, as having been a parent, parenting, there were things that I know I said that I wish I could take back. I do. And there are things that I said that I meant, and I don't know how they took it, and I don't care. I do care, but there are things that I've said that I wish I didn't say, but there are things that I said that I meant, and I don't know which one, how they would take either one of them. So if you don't talk them out and hash them out as adults, or even as kids, because I think if we stop labeling bad or good, the kids will talk. My granddaughter and I, who's 8 now, she and I talked about everything. If she wasn't feeling very good about something, she'd talk about it. If she was feeling very good about something, she'd talk about it. And she kept talking about it. And what happens is they stop talking about it. And when they stop talking about it, I think that's when the trouble begins.
Mm.
Now they're hiding, and now we don't know what they're feeling, and they could say they're feeling fine about something and they're not, because we have shut them down somewhere along the way. That if you tell that, you're a bad girl, or you're disappointing, like Barb says, or the vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know.
So
When
bad,
we, go ahead, Ron.
bad and good are such inappropriate terms anyway, because they're all judgment late. It means bad according to the person who's saying it. But what's bad from one person's perspective may not be bad. That's why I always tried to say healthy or unhealthy.
Different
What?
or different.
Different, yes. Yeah, is there a better way that you could have handled this? As opposed to what you did was bad or, wrong. It was, these are the consequences that you've done. Could you have made a better choice? And yeah.
Well, in my stumbling around as a parent with the few points, I can really count on my hands those areas that I wish I could take back. I didn't feel good after myself. So we're not sure how the parent who's delivering these disciplines or pearls of wisdom, whatever they want to call them, how they feel about it. So if the parent doesn't have empathy for the child, you're not going to feel that you hurt them at that point. You're just going to keep kind of moving on. But in my case, I felt empathy and I didn't like the way it felt. So I didn't repeat it. I didn't go through the dialogue that you went through, Ron, and out loud, but I went through it in my own body and my own consciousness. And I didn't want to repeat that. So any of the things that I messed up with, I didn't repeat again, but I can't take it back though.
But according to the Florida agreements, you did mess up. You did the best you could.
Well, I didn't know the four agreements, so so the four agreements came after parenting for me. So when next is 7, if anybody has the book. When we went against the rules, we were punished. When we went along with the rules, we got a reward. When we were punished many times a day, and we were also rewarded many times a day. Soon we became afraid of being punished and also afraid of not receiving the reward. The reward is the attention that we got from our parents or from other people like siblings, teachers, and friends. We soon developed a need to hook other people's attention in order to get the reward. The reward feels good. We keep doing what others want us to do in order to get the reward. With that fear of being punished and that fear of not getting the reward, we start pretending to be what we are not, just to please others and just to be good enough for someone else. We try to please mom and dad. We try to please the teachers at school. We try to please the church. We try to, and we start acting. We pretend to be what we are not because we are afraid of being rejected. Wow, that's a mouthful. The fear of being rejected becomes the fear of not being good enough. Eventually, we become someone that we are not. We become a copy of mama's belief, daddy's beliefs, society's beliefs, and religion's beliefs. Wow. Any comments, questions? Keep going. We're good. All of our normal tendencies are lost in the process of domestication. And when we are old enough for our mind to understand, we learn the word no. From Debbie's talk this weekend. The adults say, don't do this, don't do that. We rebel and say no. We rebel because we are defending our freedom. We want to be ourselves, but we are very little and the adults are big and strong. After a certain time, we are afraid because we know that every time we do something wrong, we are going to be punished. The domestication is so strong that at certain points in our life, we no longer need anyone to domesticate us. We don't need mom or dad, the school or the church to domesticate us. We are so well trained that we are our own domesticator. Oh, let's pause. Is anybody still doing what the parent said do? Because and the parent might not even be on the planet anymore, but mama said do this, or daddy said do that, or my teacher said do this, or my uncle said do that. I had my uncle come up in my mind the other day. He said, always have 6 months of savings just in case something happens. You know, and where'd that thought come from? And he's been gone for 20 years, but there he is in my head with some thought that he gave me that long ago when I was a kid. So, does anybody have any thoughts in their heads from mom, dad that still come up? They're not even around on the planet anymore, and they'll just pop in your head.
You know, we have that agreement who decides to speak those voices, which voice wants, you know, because some of it's good advice. But then sometimes, you know, it's garbage. I heard a lot of garbage when I was a kid. Like mainly it was like getting out alive was the key for me. But but I'm not that person. And luckily I was blessed to get help when I needed from the church and social working when I was younger, and I got out. And I knew my mama died when I was 4, so I had that good, whatever she instilled in me, I had that love. And then the stepmom it was just craziness. It was just beat down after beat down after beat down. And I remember just going to, and she would isolate me too. So, you know, it was trying to fit in and stuff, but you know, you just learn in time that I'm not, but I'm sure, especially my adult life, I'm it's creeping in. It's like things I never resolved when I was younger. But because of my spiritual path, in the last 5 years, I've really done a lot of strength and figure out, you know, doing a lot of shadow work.
Yep.
Good, good, good. Well, you know, Beth, sometimes people's natural mothers are like the stepmother. My natural mother was like your stepmother, and you would not expect that from someone that says that they love you. So a lot the you know, The Shack is a movie that I really like where the boy's father was a deacon in this church, and you know, he was this upstanding person, and but he was beating the mother, you know, later. So you have actual parents that just treat the kids poorly too, you know. So I think what happens with studies like what we're doing, finding a teaching like this, the things that happen to us prepares us for our entire path. I don't think it's just for our childhood. I think some of the things that happen to us in particularly are part of our lessons to help the people that come along our labyrinth path. Because I think we gathered data for a reason. Because, you know, let's use the story of Jesus real quick, that from the day that he was coming to the planet, they were trying to get to him, you know, and something protected him for him to do his walk. And I think that's what protected each of us. We had a walk that, you know, we could have just been drowned at birth too, but there was something that gave us resilience, gave us the ability to overcome adversity, because there's somebody on our path that's going to need what we have been through to help them get through it too. So I think the hardships, there's not one soul that has overcome adversity that didn't go through some kind of very difficult, tumultuous life to get to the other side. So I think it's a part of our journey to help others, is how I'm looking at it. Any other ideas around that when we went through something little and now we're facing it?
Not that so much, but as far as the domestication, I was in high school during Vietnam and Watergate, so I grew up, I was the family hippie and the family radical. I rejected domestication when I was about 12. And I'm still the family radical and the family hippie, and everybody still loves me, but I've never agreed to agree with what anybody else has said ever. and was given the space to do that, thankfully, even in my family. My father was very conservative. I would had some very interesting agreements, but even at 13 or 14, I was allowed to have those kind of intellectual discussions. So I was given the freedom to be undomesticated fairly early.
Very good. Anyone else too? Okay.
Yeah,
Very
I
good.
would.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I would
Go ahead.
agree with Ron, though. You know, my poor mother, a Libra, and one who, you know, didn't always like who likes conflict. Some people do, maybe, but I was I was pretty disagreeable, and I still insist on thinking for myself. But I was uh, much more rebellious, and still, even now, I think if I was with my sister, who's the only one living, and her family, I think they would still be wanting me to acquiesce and do what they want or what they think is best for me. And I probably still wouldn't. I mean, sometimes I would, but the last time I visited them, we had one of those kinds of conversations afterward, and it did not go well. You know, they really wanted me to stay back from the walk that they all went on and go for a ride. And I was like, no, I wanted to be out walking, and I had ways I could have handled it. And, so, you take being a girl and being the youngest and being blind and now being older, and there are a lot of people who think they know what's best. And
That's
so
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Good call,
really
Debbie. Yep, you're
it's
right.
really really interesting. Now I will say, on the other hand, I've come to a place. What is it Mark Twain said? He said something about he thought his parents didn't know very much, and then as time went on, he realized how smart they were, or something, some funny
That
kind of thing.
I know that one. He says, when I was 13, I thought my dad was the stupidest person in the world. Now I'm 20. I was amazed at how much he learned in 7 years.
He learned. Yeah, yeah. And I've been able to go back and see what the positive intent there was, and how much my mom, certainly had to deal with. And the good thing is, it doesn't make me feel guilty or bad. I'm like, oh, I understand. Oh, I understand what she meant. Oh, I understand why she did this or that. And so that's been nice for just a different level of peace. Um, I don't know if I don't know how different I would be if I was living that all over again, though. I might be just the way I was, just still speaking up and thinking for myself and all of that.
Debbie, do you think that you were born that way? Like, or did you just, partly because having to navigate that it made you stronger and
I think both. I
knowing
mean,
what you want?
well, considering that I was 3 months premature, tried to push my way out back first, not even feet first, but back first. I'm going to come out my way,
Right.
and then 1 in 1,000 chances of living 12 hours. I mean, I probably was stubborn. I probably had several near death experiences too, and then had to wait in that box for almost 3 months to come home and into that alcoholic household. So I mean, I think it was a combination of things, them and me, and a whole bunch of stuff that came
Mhm.
together. Yeah, so
Hmm.
fascinating.
Hmm. I like the spin that you put on it about how people think they know. I think that happened even throughout all my years. Like even when I went to college, when I started having a family and moving around, people were giving me advice that didn't know what they were talking about.
Even when
They
you
weren't
weren't
even
asking
doing
for it.
that part too, but they were
Yeah.
telling me stuff that they hadn't
Mhm.
done, but because they were people I had that had authority over me before, or I had admired or respected, I didn't equate the fact that they hadn't done what they telling me to do before, because what I would just do is not do it. I was like, I guess I had my own rebellious thing going, but they're saying do this, but I'm looking at, well, that won't work for me, so I don't do it. And then it's only years later that I figured out, well, they didn't do it either. So why were they telling me to do this? And they had no clue of what that would be or how to do that if they haven't done
Yeah.
it. And we're not even children anymore. So yeah,
Right. Yeah.
domestication can go throughout our whole lives, it sounds like, based on this conversation.
And I think a lot of people pass out advice, kind of like processed food, whether you want it or not. They just are ready to dish it out. I mean, just to everybody. I think a lot of people in not necessarily like-minded circles like this pass out advice, and they just think that's a good thing to add to conversation. So it's kind of more common, maybe more common than not, to pass out advice. Seems like
Okay. Any
maybe.
other comments? I'm gonna go up to the top of page 9. It says, we are an auto domesticated animal. We can now domesticate ourselves according to the same belief the system we're given and using the same system of punishment and reward. We punish ourselves when we don't follow the rules according to our belief system. We reward ourselves when we are a good boy or a good girl. The belief system is like the book of law that rules our mind. Without question, whatever is in the book of law is our truth. We base all our judgments according to the book of law. Even these judgments go against our own inner nature. Even moral laws like the Ten Commandments are programmed into our mind into the process of domestication. One by one, all these agreements go into the book of law, and these agreements rule our dream. There is something in our minds that judges everybody and everything, including the weather, the dog, the cat, everything. The inner judge uses what is in our book of law to judge everything we do and don't do, and everything we think and don't think, and everything we feel and don't feel. Everything lives under the tyranny of this judge. Every time we do something that goes against the book of law, the judge says we are guilty. We need to be punished. We should be ashamed. This happens many times a day after day, years of our lives. Everybody agree with that? Are we beating ourselves up still?
I'm trying not to.
What's interesting to me, and then I'll stop because somebody else might want to jump in here, but because I'll feel guilty if I don't. But what's fascinating to me, though, is that punishment. I even thank God my two textbooks now are encouraging parents not to be so heavily into punishment, but into other ways of helping kids to talk through things. But I know I've known of situations where someone would come forward and say, I feel terrible. I've been wrestling with this for a while. I hurt. I I have to confess that I did this or that wrong. I feel terrible. So as far as I'm concerned, they already went through their punishment of that horrible pain. And then someone, a parent or somebody says, well, you still have to be punished. You still have to, like, society or whomever needs to know that you were made to do your time. It's just interesting. I think that's an interesting thing.
And for me, it helps me remember that the concept of the whole book is that this being the introduction is the reminder that we're spiritual beings. And that while this is our human natures, we have to live according to our human natures, and we don't have to let our human natures decide. When I start feeling like I'm judging myself, the first thing I do is pray, meditate, and get out of my head. And remember, I'm a spiritual being, and none of this really matters. I mean, I'm learning the best to do so I can help other people, or so I can learn not to
Yeah,
experience
it's not
pain.
expecting-
But it's not who I am. I am a spiritual being having these experiences, and so this is I love the part of the what I love about this book so much is that it explains the human condition in such simple, relatable terms. It also reminds us that this is not who we really are. This is the dream. This is the smoke between us and the mirror.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Beth, were you saying something?
I
No?
was, a mirror pretty much in life, and whatever we reflect back, sometimes it's deeper, you wanna go kind of behind the mirror, but, we have agreements in life. Well, we agree being happy, we agree disagreeing, we agree on walking away, and it's hard because sometimes a head and heart decision is really hard. But you gotta be true to yourself, and because we wanna live for other people, and it's great, but sometimes they will drown us, and then we're not living for ourselves. They're cheating, we're cheating our experience in life.
Yeah.
So you gotta have to know when to walk away, and the older I get and the more stronger in my journey and stuff, I just want peace, and I can walk away. If it's not bringing me peace, I'm walking away.
There you go. Good call.
Anyone else? Yep, a great call. Several things came to mind, but we call these peace talks because I found maybe 20 plus years ago, before I divorced, I found this season of nonviolence and Mother Teresa's recipe for peace. And I've always liked peace. Nature is peace. When it comes to human nature, our nature is very peaceful. It gets disturbed by the things that we have been exposed to other than our nature. I think that's why we like animals so much. I think that's why we like nature so much, outdoors and near water and trees and flowers and all that's nature. And we all have our own unique nature that this power gave us. But what happens when we come to the planet, I, there is something that we're supposed to learn to do our best through. And so, as we're learning to do our best through the labyrinth of life, it's going to show us cruelty. It's going to show us anger. It's going to show us um, cheating or lying or stealing, because that's the opposite of honesty and integrity and happiness and joy and right action. So there's day, there's night, there's up, there's down. And in our own bodies, there is something that says, I saw two children playing outside today, and they're 3 years old. And the little girl and the little boy were riding on their little scooters. And the little boy wanted to come over to the little girl. He was wearing his helmet, and I don't know whether the helmet was too much for her or what. But when he started getting close, she started doing this. And I don't know where that came from. She's 3. I never seen her mother do anything like that before. Nothing. But she was keeping him off of her because she didn't want. Where did that come from? That was in her nature to keep this helmet or this boy coming after her. Whatever. It was in her instinct to keep him away from her. So while I'm all at a distance, so I can't hear what they're saying. So the mom is explaining to the daughter that it's okay, and that's a helmet or whatever it was. I could just see from the balcony that she was telling her what that was. And so we have to figure out how to help the nature of ourselves to be calm, how the nature of ourselves can be complete with who we are. And I think that's what this teaching does. That's what this book does. That's why there's a whole stack of books behind you guys, and everybody might have libraries at home, because we need to remind ourselves of our true nature, is what I'm thinking. We all have our own nature, and we're supposed to nourish the nature, not break it down, tear it up, change it into something else. Educate it. Let it know what's the right thing to do for you, and then you move forward with that. But if it doesn't come out, that was just a neat analogy to just see, because she was like, and I'm like, I've never seen her do. She's the one that feeds my fish when I come to you guys. And I'm like, I've never seen her act like that before. But this little boy came out of nowhere with this helmet on, and it bothered her for some reason. Yes.
When my little granddaughter was less than a year old, she was sitting in her high chair eating dinner, and they had a fire emergency in their apartment, and the firemen had to come in. They had these big suits with the big mask and everything on, and she just went hysterical because she didn't know there was a person in there. She just and I was thinking about maybe if we are aware that the person that we think we don't like or that is repulsing us is really just wearing a suit. They're just that's not the real them. Maybe more to the heart and not to the appearance that they're giving us.
I like that. Because that's even more gear. You're right. They were hidden under there. This is just, oh my goodness, that's a good one too. So I think we're bringing up how, our nature comes up for protection, or it's not understood, or we need an explanation. And then we've got these parents, whoever they're assigned to, are they giving us correct information, or are they misleading us? Or they're giving us their fears, or they're giving us their joys? Are they giving us their highs, or are they giving us their lows? And we've got our own nature about a high and a low, and a right and a wrong. And like Ron said, what's right for me might be wrong for you, but I like it, so. Anybody else got the book that want to read for a little? You got it, Glenda. I stopped on page 10. There is another part.
I can read for a little while.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've got a little bit more time. We'll stop at 8, everybody, so we'll read a little more.
There is another part of us that receives the judgments, and this part is called the victim. The victim carries the blame, the guilt, and the shame. It's the part of us that says, poor me, I'm not good enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not worthy of love. Poor me. The judge agrees and says, yes, you're not good enough. And this is all based on a belief system that we never chose to believe. These beliefs are so strong that even years later, when we were exposed to new concepts, make our own decisions, we find that these beliefs still control our lives. Want me to continue?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Whatever goes against the book of law will make you feel a funny sensation in your solar plexus, and it's called fear. Breaking the rules in the book of law opens your emotional wounds, and your reaction is to create emotional poison, because everything that is in the book of law has to be true. Anything that challenges what you believe is going to make you feel unsafe. Even if the book of law is wrong, it makes you feel safe.
Very much.
That's a lot. Thank you. Let's pause there. The book of law, so we're putting in our own rules in this book, right? It's not necessarily like the book of Job or Peter or Paul. This is our book that we're making our rules in. So just because we wrote it in the book, we think it's the rule? Is that what's happening here?
Until we learn otherwise, until we get strong enough to challenge those beliefs. For me, it starts with the domestication, and then we make adaptations to the making. So we make different rules as we grow, as to meet our circumstances. But in any moment in time, what we believe is the best we can believe.
You challenge them.
And that's, so right now, our belief basis is perfect. There's nothing we believe that we don't really believe. So right now, what we think is as true as it can possibly be for us. But wisdom is realizing that everything we believe may be asked backward. Tomorrow, we may believe something completely different.
I think the book of law is what we learn as children. We are, and then, we feel like that has to be true. And then anything that challenges it, is going to make us feel like that. And so don't believe everything you think.
Yes, exactly.
Reminds me of when you write a 6 on the ground, and if you're standing on that side of my 6, you see a 9, and I see a 6, and how our perception is different, but both are
But the
true.
same.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that how we talked about earlier, all of these different influences from the birth all the way throughout our lives, how they're collective, and we're always kind of maybe not struggling, but just innately looking for that, who am I? And being comfortable with it and loving it. And it takes a lot of things and like study and spiritual guidance and maybe even therapy and whatever to
Courage.
kind of hone in. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. And that it reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell. Read that book Blink and how many influencers there are on all of us. And then how we just kind of walk around the world almost unbeknownst to us, making assessments and judgments about whatever, because we've been so
Automatic.
unconsciously and automatically judging
Which-
from, from where we are right now, like Ronald said. I love that we can change and do change, and it's so cool.
Change your thinking.
Kathy, which Malcolm Gladwell book are you talking about? What did you say about?
The book Blink,
Okay.
a movie, I don't know, because I've read maybe of his Genevieve. I'll get back to you, but I think it's Blink.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that somebody, Ron, I guess, was saying courage, because it does take a lot of courage to kind of break through the domestication, but also really listening to yourself and understanding yourself and what you believe and the path you want to pursue.
And being honest with you.
Honoring it,
Being honest.
Honest.
Because we can lie to ourselves as much as anybody else can.
But also, know, some, like people, they tell you who they think you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes everybody gets a different version of you on their perspective. But, I listen, if I listen with hearing, like, why are they saying this to me? Ask questions instead of being defensive when I'm.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're sitting there and you're being defensive, like, oh, why is that triggering me? You go into exploring.
Yeah. Hitting old buttons you need to unwire.
Yeah. And there's so many people, there's like walking moves, like. Here, y'all. We were talking about, talking and people telling you who they think you are, or, their perception of you. Not giving them favor, but just asking like, wonder why they think that.
That's how we see ourselves.
Right,
And,
yeah.
It's like saying you're a designer.
Yeah.
And
And there's some people
learned that from somebody. I thought that is so good because
Yeah.
it's funny. And it's kind of
and you change. Everybody has a version. Like a few years ago, my brother said he told everybody I was angry. And I'm like, why does he think that? Maybe when I was younger, I was angry, but I don't feel like I'm an angry person. That's
Yeah. Number 2, don't take anything personally. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's- yeah, okay, yeah.
And I'm
haven't
really
gotten there yet.
Not there yet.
Yeah, no, we're not there yet, but I will. That's my one that I have to go open the book all the time on, though. Taking it personally, because if I lose my job or somebody hits me in the gut, I'm taking it personally. I am. So I have to go find that book and find out why I'm not supposed to, because it feels personal to me in this moment. Um, that's back to the book of law, though. You know, what are we writing in the book? Why am I writing that in my book that I took that personally? You know, although we're jumping the gun. So I think this part, what we're going to go into, and from a week from now, because we're probably not going to finish this. But think about your own book of law. What are you writing in your book? Because I write my journal all the time. And so my journal is really about sometimes what happens in the day, sometimes some technical things and numbers and stuff like that. But a lot of it is my good feeling stuff. And I want more of that good feeling. So when I'm writing in my law book today, is how do I get more of that? You know, I'll even put dollar signs in there because I see us growing our at the spiritual enrichment center. When we say enrichment, not just for our soul, but actually our bank account. And I actually pulled out a check that I blew up when I first left IBM of the money that I was going to have to use to live on until I found a job. And I'm like, you know what? We can have that much money in our account. So I'm writing my book of law is about what I want to be and not necessarily what has been or what somebody has told me. And I think that comes from the adventure of a kid where, you know, you want this to be that and you're drawing and you draw your life into existence. So my task for our group is to start writing your new book of law because we've written a book of law already. And it seems like, and it's based on what parents said, cousins, me, you, friends,
Yeah,
husbands, children, you know, we got all these stuff in our book and might need to rewrite our book.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's like the hospital thing, like, we're all in recovery, trying to like figure out exactly what we want, what we envision, called by higher power, our higher self. What is our path? And it's unique. I mean, this book is very interesting because it's general and we can all pull something, but we each are uniquely writing our own book.
Perfect. Yep.
I just said these next two paragraphs are very powerful.
Okay, you can read those for us, Rose, if you don't mind.
She Linda left off with, even if the book of law is wrong, it makes you feel safe. That's why we need a great deal of courage, as one said, to challenge our own beliefs. Because even if we know we didn't choose all these beliefs, it's also true that we agree to all of them. The agreement is so strong that even if we understand the concept of it not being true, we feel the blame, the guilt, and the shame that occur if we go against the rules. Just as the government has a book of laws that rules society, our belief system is the book of laws that rules our personal dreams. All these laws exist in our mind. We believe them, and the judge inside us bases everything on these rules. The judge decrees, and the victim suffers the guilt and punishment. But who says there is justice in this dream? True justice is paying only once for each mistake. True injustice is paying more than once for each mistake.
Amen.
Yeah, that one, yeah, that's a mouthful. We'll definitely pause there because that's the one that I think we all do. We make people pay for one mistake over and over and over and over and over and over till the end of time. And that's not forgiveness. You know, remembering it is one thing, but having people pay for it is another thing. Um, so
Particularly, I think, in regards to judging myself, because it's that judge that will bring up the, oh, you're so irresponsible every time you forget to, lock your door or Uh, so it's those thoughts that we punish ourselves over. We make a mistake when we're a kid, and anytime we do something similar, we think, oh, we haven't changed. We're still the same. We're still punishing ourselves for whatever we did that was wrong back then.
We might make the right decision. Sometimes we keep going and that really make the right decision. We know in our heart we did, but sometimes our brain.
Or just being a kid screwing up. I mean, I screwed up plenty of times. And those that, yeah, but there's those are the ones that I have to remember that happen. If they happen, if we believe like we are taught here that God's all good and active everything everywhere, then it was a good thing that happened to me, even though it's not. And if it's a good thing that happened to me, I learned from it. And if I've learned from it, then it's okay. If it was meant to be. But that's just me because it's easy. I like
I won't, for me personally, I won't say it was a good thing that happened to me, even though God allowed or we're in order. I just know if I don't like the way it feels, I don't want that to happen again. So that's when I rewrite the rule. If this works, if this doesn't work for me and it works for the whole planet, even, I've got to figure out how it doesn't, what do I do about rewriting that rule for me? And it goes along with the medicine, like penicillin. A lot of people can take penicillin, and I could take penicillin up until I was 30 years old. But after that, it would, my body changed and it would kill me. So I had to come up with other methods of healing, or they did, you know. Fortunately, I don't need antibiotics that much anyway, but I think that goes with everything, not just our physical intake. It's for our emotional, it's for our mental, it's for our spiritual. If it does, if that's you become allergic to something, let's say it that way, you got to figure out what else works for you because you can't do that anymore because it'll hurt you or it'll kill you or it'll take you out. It might not take Rose out, but it'll take Nisi out. So you have to figure out what won't take you out.
Put that look right there too.
I said nothing was gonna take Rose out, and she gave me.
Nothing's gonna take Rose out. I know. Rose is a woman of iron, iron woman, woman of steel. So
And to know that if something is going to take me out, and I know that about myself, it's almost like, well, maybe I have an allergy or something. It's not a oh, I'm inferior or I'm unworthy next to Rose because it's not going to take her out, and I know that it might take me out. Well, maybe that's just a really good way of being able to stand up and say, this isn't good for me. I'm not going to choose to do this because it doesn't agree with me.
That's what Bill said earlier. He said, if you know that something isn't good for you, you learn to stay away from it.
It's hard to hear.
she said
Some
it.
of you,
Who said it? Who
Glenda.
who said that, Glenda? That if something's not good for you, stay away from it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, there's certain things that you learn your lesson, so why keep?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I keep touching the hot
yeah,
stove.
that's right.
That's right.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for the compliment about the e-blast, Geneve, because I use the fire thing there too, because we got to learn how to use this law because we may not understand it, but it's back to we can use the fire, to heat the house with, or we can use it to burn the house down. We have to figure out how to use it for us. And, some people don't even need fire. They don't like the fire. They live in Alaska because they like the cold. So um, we do have to adjust the temperature to our own bodies and to our own chemistries. And if we couldn't do it when we were kids, we were gathering data according to Esther Hicks, and who she channels. We're all collecting data, and at some point we get to use this data that we're collecting. So I think I'm at my non-collecting data age. the bulk of it is behind me, and now I'm applying it, and everything I learn really enhances what somebody has taught me already. This is now ancient wisdom being enhanced from somebody of today telling me, oh yeah, I knew that. I understood that when I was a kid, and now I understand what it means. You know, all those cliches that mean something, and when you heard them when you were little, and oh, so that's what that means now. So I think we learn, or we make up our own. You know, it is what it is. That is one of the newest phrases out there in the world. I did not grow up with that phrase, but I dig it. It is what it is. And what do we do with what is? So we're winding up. Any other comments before we close out with a treatment? This was a great discussion. We'll pick up here next week. I'll be in town next week, so I'll be in person. We'll still Zoom this, but I'll be sitting there with those that are there. And we stopped at page 12, right? How many? So I'll put a mark there.
What does that paragraph start with?
How many times do we pay for one mistake? That's
Okay.
1,000 times. That's what we're going to start with next week.
I have an answer to your,
Really?
what do you do? Well, you said something about what do you do? It is what it is. What do you do with that? I'm laughing, thinking, we is with it.
We are. That's cute. And so it is. That's the treatment. We can go now. No,
That's who it is.
all right, this was a great discussion. We breathe life into ourselves by having this dialogue, knowing that each one of us is this light called God. It's our turn to sparkle and shine. So we know we're letting go of anything that hurt us from the past, that harmed us from the past. We're not bringing it into our future, or we hash it out. We get it all amputated from our emotional, mental, and spiritual intake, and it's not there anymore, and it leaves room for newness to grow, and it grows us personally, it grows SEC, it grows Dothan, it grows Alabama, it grows Georgia, it grows the US, it grows the world, because each of us shines our light so brightly. So we give thanks for not being so domesticated anymore. We're so free spirited that the world sees and knows to get on board with their free spirit positiveness. We give thanks for this, knowing that we are ready to make a change in this world. We are the change we wish to see, and so it is.
It is.
All right, thank you. All right, have a great week. See you this
You
weekend.
too.
Love you
Awesome.
all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Oh, you're welcome.
10 minutes.